The Corinth station floated in the empty space between 3 star systems. It was massive, almost the size of a small moon, and it glowed with the lights of 1,000 docking bays. Ships from every corner of the galaxy came here to trade, to talk, and to show off their power. Today was special. Today was the military exhibition, where the 12 species of the Galactic Council displayed their finest warships. Captain Taiho Park stood on the observation deck of his ship, watching the alien vessels parade past the station. Each one was more beautiful than the last. The Valari ships looked like frozen lightning, their hulls made of pure crystallized energy. The Malthari vessels were organic, grown rather than built, their surfaces shifting like living skin. The Antari cruisers hummed with harmonic frequencies, their shapes designed to channel sound into weapons. And then there was his ship. The HSS Ho looked at his vessel through the reflection in the window. It was boxy. It was gray. It had thick metal plates welded to every surface. Antenna arrays stuck out at ugly angles. Missile pods lined its sides like warts on a toad. Compared to the elegant alien ships, the Dokdo looked like a brick someone had thrown into space. "They are laughing at us again," said a voice behind him. Teho turned to see Ambassador Yuna Choi walking toward him. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and silver hair tied back in a tight bun. She had spent 30 years representing humanity to the galaxy, and those years showed in the lines on her face. "Let them laugh," Taiho said. "Easy for you to say. You do not have to sit in council meetings while they make jokes about human technology." Yuna stood beside him and watched a Valari destroyer glide past. "The Valari admiral called our ships metal boxes that somehow fly." The Malthari delegate asked if we still use wheels on our ground vehicles. Taiho said nothing. He had heard worse. The door behind them opened, and Lieutenant Jisoo Han stormed in. She was young, barely 30, with fire in her eyes that never seemed to go out. As the weapons officer of the Dokdo, she took personal offense at any insult to the ship's armaments. "Captain, you need to hear what they are saying on the open channels," Jisoo said. Her hands were shaking with anger. "The Antari commander just asked if our railguns use actual gunpowder." "Gunpowder? Like we are from the Stone Age." "Let them talk," Taiho repeated. "How can you be so calm?" Jisoo demanded. Taiho finally turned away from the window. His face was weathered, marked by 57 years of life and 40 years of military service. He had seen things that would break most people. A few alien jokes were nothing, because talk is just talk, he said. "When the time comes for action, we will see who is laughing." Yuna checked her communicator. "The exhibition ceremony starts in 1 hour. The council wants all commanding officers present. Try not to start any fights." "I never start fights," Taiho said. "I finish them." The ceremony was held in the Grand Hall of Corinth Station. Representatives from all 12 species gathered under a ceiling that displayed the live positions of every star in the galaxy. It was meant to remind everyone of how vast the universe was, and how small any single species was within it. Taiho stood with his senior officers. Jisoo, Chief Engineer Do-won Kim, Navigator Minji Yoon, Medical Officer Yoonji Beek, and Communications Ensign Subin Lee. They were the only humans in a sea of aliens, and they felt every stare. The Valari Admiral approached them. His body was made of living light, constantly shifting between gold and white. His name was unpronounceable in human languages, so the translation devices simply called him Admiral Bright. "Ah, the humans," Admiral Bright said. His voice was like music, each word a different note. "I see you brought your vessel. How brave of you to display it alongside real warships." Jisoo stepped forward, but Do-won grabbed her arm. The engineer was a quiet man in his 40s, with gray streaks in his black hair and hands that had fixed every system on the Dokdo at least twice. "Easy," Dowan whispered. "Not worth it." Admiral Bright continued as if he had not noticed. "I understand your ship still uses projectile weapons." "Fascinating. We stopped using such primitive methods 3,000 years ago. Tell me, do your soldiers still carry swords as well?" The aliens around them laughed. Even species that normally hated each other shared this moment of amusement at humanity's expense. Taiho smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Our weapons work fine, Admiral. Different does not mean worse." Of course," Admiral Bright said in a tone that meant he did not believe it at all. "Well, I am sure your little ship will be useful for cargo transport, perhaps, or rescue missions. Something safe." Before Taiho could respond, every light in the Grand Hall turned red. A piercing alarm cut through the air. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing a star map with a spreading red stain moving toward Valari space. "Attention all vessels," a robotic voice announced. "Emergency distress signal received from Valari Colony 7. Unknown hostile force attacking. All available ships are ordered to respond immediately." The laughter died. Admiral Bright's glowing form flickered with what might have been fear. "The crash," someone whispered. "The swarm has awakened." Taiho had heard of the crash. Every species in the galaxy had. They were an insectoid race that moved through space like locusts, consuming everything in their path. They had been dormant for 800 years, sleeping in the dark spaces between stars. Now they were awake. "All warships will form a defense fleet," Admiral Bright announced, his musical voice now sharp with command. "We leave in 30 minutes. He turned to Taiho with obvious reluctance. "Your vessel may accompany us. Stay in the rear. Try not to get in the way." Taiho nodded. "Understood, Admiral." As they walked back to the Dokdo, Jisu was fuming. "Rear guard duty. They are treating us like children." "Good," Taiho said quietly. "Good? How is this good?" Taiho stopped and looked at his weapons officer. "Because children are often underestimated. And underestimated enemies are the most dangerous kind." He resumed walking, leaving Jisu to wonder what exactly her captain was planning. The fleet traveled through warp space for 6 hours. 37 warships from 8 different species, all rushing to save a Valari colony world from destruction. The Dokdo flew at the very back, behind even the supply ships. Nobody wanted the ugly human vessel anywhere near the front lines. Captain Taiho spent the journey in his command chair, reviewing everything humanity knew about the crash. The information was limited. The swarm had last attacked 800 years ago, before humans had even discovered space travel. What little data existed came from ancient records kept by the elder species. The crash were insects, but not like any insects from Earth. Each creature was the size of a small fighter ship, with hard shells that could survive the vacuum of space. They traveled in bioships, living vessels grown from organic matter, and they shared a single mind. Billions of creatures, all thinking as one. "Captain," Navigator Minji Yoon called from her station. She was a slender woman with quick hands and quicker eyes. "We are exiting warp in 2 minutes." Taiho stood up. "All hands to battle stations. I want every system ready." The bridge crew moved with practice speed. Jisu powered up the weapon systems. Her earlier anger transformed into cold focus. Dowan ran final diagnostics on the engines and shields. Subin opened communication channels to the fleet. Yunji prepared the medical bay for casualties. The stars stretched and snapped back into place as the fleet dropped out of warp. What they saw made several officers gasp. I Colony 7 was burning. The planet's surface was covered in dark patches where cities had once stood. Orbital stations hung in pieces, their debris spreading slowly through space. And surrounding everything, blocking out the stars themselves, was the swarm. Thousands of ships. No, tens of thousands. They moved like a living cloud, shifting and flowing with a purpose that no single mind could direct. The bioships were ugly things, covered in spines and pulsing with sickly green light. They ranged in size from small fighters to massive carriers, and at the very center of the swarm, something enormous waited. Something the size of a moon? The Queen ship? Dohan said quietly. That is how they coordinate. Kill the Queen, and the swarm falls apart. Easier said than done, Jisoo muttered, looking at the countless ships between them and the target. Admiral. Bright's voice came over the fleet communication channel. All vessels form attack pattern. Energy ships to the front. Gravity vessels on the flanks. Harmonic ships provide support fire. Human vessel. He paused. Stay back and observe. Taiho did not argue. Understood, Admiral. Dokdo will hold position. The battle began. The Volari ships fired first. Their energy lances were beautiful weapons, beams of concentrated light that could cut through anything. The first wave of Kresh bioships exploded in brilliant flashes. The Mothri vessels created gravity wells, pulling groups of enemies together before crushing them into balls of compressed matter. The Antari sang their harmonic weapons into existence, sound waves that shattered organic material from the inside. For 5 minutes, it looked like an easy victory. The swarm fell back under the combined assault. Officers on the Dokdo watched with grudging respect as the alien fleet demonstrated why they had ruled the galaxy for so long. Then everything changed. The second wave of Kresh arrived, and they were different. Their shells had changed color, becoming reflective. The energy lances hit them and bounced away harmlessly. The swarm had adapted. Impossible, Subin said, watching the tactical display. They changed their entire biology in minutes. The gravity wells caught the new Kresh ships, but they did not crush. Instead, the bioships released clouds of smaller creatures that disrupted the gravitational fields. The harmonic weapons still worked for a few moments. Then the swarm adapted again, generating counter frequencies that canceled out the sound waves. One by one, the advanced alien weapons became useless. The Kresh pushed forward. A Volari destroyer was surrounded and torn apart by thousands of small creatures. A Malthari carrier tried to retreat, but was caught by a massive bioship that wrapped around it like a snake. The Antari flagship took a direct hit and went silent. They are dying out there, Minji said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were white on the navigation controls. Admiral Bright's voice returned to the communication channel. It was no longer musical. It was afraid. All ships fall back. Repeat, fall back. Our weapons are not working. Taiho watched as the proud alien fleet turned and ran. Ships that had been mocking humanity hours ago now fled past the Dokdo without a second glance. Some were damaged. Some were burning. All were scared. Captain, Jisoo said slowly, the swarm is not chasing them. They are coming toward us. She was right. A portion of the Kresh swarm had broken off from the main attack. Hundreds of bioships were now heading directly for the Dokdo. Perhaps they had noticed the strange human vessel. Perhaps they simply wanted to eliminate everything in the system. Either way, the Dokdo would be fighting alone. How long until they reach us? Taiho asked. 4 minutes, Minji answered. Taiho looked around his bridge. These were his people. They had served with him for years. They trusted him with their lives. And now he was about to put that trust to the test. Listen carefully, he said. What you are about to see is not pretty. It is not elegant. It is not the way other species fight. But it is how humans have fought since we first picked up rocks and threw them at each other. We do not adapt to our enemies. We destroy them so completely that adapting does not matter. He turned to Jisoo. Load everything. Railguns, missiles, point defense systems, everything. Jisoo smiled. It was not a nice smile. With pleasure, Captain. Do-hwan powered up the engines to full. Minji plotted attack vectors. Subin sent a single message to the fleeing fleet. Dokdo engaging enemy. Watch and learn. Taiho sat back in his command chair and watched the swarm approach. They had no idea what was coming. None of them did. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had survived so long on a planet that tried to kill them every day. All hands, Taiho announced over the ship-wide communication. Prepare for combat. Today we show them what humans are made of. Captain Taiho Park closed his eyes for a moment as the crushed swarm approached. In that brief darkness, memories returned. Memories he had tried to forget for 30 years. He was 27 years old again. Standing in the ruins of Bizen, the Earth unification wars had reached Korea, and the beautiful coastal city was burning. Bodies lay in the streets. The smell of smoke and death filled every breath. Taiho had lost his entire squad that day. He had crawled through rubble for 16 hours to reach safety, dragging his wounded captain behind him. That captain had died in his arms, but not before giving Taiho a piece of advice that shaped his entire life. War is not about being clever, the dying man had whispered. War is about making sure the other side cannot fight anymore. Whatever it takes, whatever the cost. Taiho opened his eyes. The crushed swarm was now visible through the main window, a dark cloud blocking out the stars. Captain? Jisoo's voice brought him back to the present. Orders? Tell me about our weapons, Lieutenant. Explain them to me like I have never heard of them before. Jisoo blinked at the strange request, but she understood. The captain wanted the bridge crew to remember exactly what they were fighting with. Railguns, she began. Electromagnetic acceleration systems that fire tungsten slugs at 10% of light speed. No energy signature for enemies to adapt to. No heat signature to detect. Just metal moving faster than anything biological can process. Each slug hits with the force of a nuclear bomb. Do-hwan continued from his engineering station. The ship is built around the weapons, not the other way around. Most alien vessels have thin hulls because they rely on energy shields. We have 40 centimeters of layered steel, titanium, and ceramic armor. Our shields are secondary. Our survival comes from being able to take hits and keep fighting. Minji added her piece. Navigation systems are tripled. 3 separate computers, 3 separate power supplies, 3 separate control systems. If 2 of them fail, we can still fight. If all 3 fail, we have manual controls that do not need any electricity at all. A human being can aim and fire our weapons with nothing but mechanical switches. Eunji, the medical officer, spoke quietly from her station near the back of the bridge. Human bodies are the same. We can lose limbs and survive. We can lose blood and keep fighting. We can be in terrible pain and still function. Our species evolved on a world that tried to kill us constantly. Predators, disease, natural disasters, and each other. We are built to suffer and continue. Taiho nodded slowly. The Crash adapt to energy. They adapt to gravity manipulation. They adapt to sound waves. But can they adapt to a piece of metal traveling at 30,000 kilometers per second? No, sir, Jisoo answered. Physics does not care about adaptation. Mass times velocity equals destruction. Always has. Always will. The swarm was close now. Individual bioships could be seen, their organic hulls pulsing with alien life. They had no idea what they were approaching. To them, the Dokdo was just another target, another meal. You know what the other species call us? Taiho asked nobody in particular. Primitives. Barbarians. They think we are inferior because we still use physical weapons. They think our technology is crude because it involves explosions and metal and fire. He stood up from his command chair. They are wrong. We are not primitive. We are specialized. For 10,000 years, humans have been perfecting one thing above all else: killing. We are the most efficient destroyers in the galaxy. Not because we enjoy it, because we had no choice. It was kill or die, and we chose to live. Subin received a transmission from the fleeing fleet. Captain, Admiral Bright is ordering us to retreat. He says engaging the swarm alone is suicide. Tell him we appreciate his concern. Then close the channel. Taiho walked to the main window and stared at the approaching enemy. My grandfather fought in the last great war on Earth. He told me something I never forgot. He said, "Other nations have armies. Korea has a history of being invaded by everyone around us. We learned that the only way to survive is to make invasions so painful that nobody wants to try." He turned to face his crew. Today, we teach that lesson to the stars. We show the Kresh and the galaxy why humans should never be underestimated. Not because we are clever, not because we are advanced, but because when we fight with everything. No limits, no restraints. Just pure, overwhelming violence until the enemy is gone. Jisu's console beeped. Weapons locked. Railguns charged. Missile bays loaded. Point defense systems active. We are ready, Captain. The ugly surprise? Taiho asked. Graviton hammer is on standby. One shot only. It will take everything we have to power it. Save it for the Queen. Do-Wan reported from engineering. Reactors at 120% capacity. We can maintain this for approximately 40 minutes before risking meltdown. We will not need 40 minutes. Minji's fingers flew across her navigation console. Attack pattern programmed. We will pass through the center of the swarm, firing in all directions, then loop back for a second run. Change it, Taiho said. No looping. Straight through. Aim for the Queen ship. We end this today. The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what he was suggesting. A straight charge through the entire swarm. No retreat. No backup plan. Victory or death. Jisu broke the silence first. Captain, I have been waiting my entire career for someone to give me this order. Daohan smiled his rare smile. Engines will hold. I built them myself. Minji cracked her knuckles. Course plotted. Straight into hell. Unji simply nodded. Medical bay is ready for casualties. I hope there will not be many. Subin, the youngest of them all, looked scared but determined. I will make sure the whole galaxy sees what we do today. Taiho returned to his command chair. The Kresh swarm filled the entire view screen now. Hundreds of alien creatures, each one confident in its ability to adapt and overcome. All hands, Taiho announced. This is the captain. In 30 seconds, we engage the enemy. Remember who you are. Remember where you come from. Remember that every human who ever lived, who ever fought, who ever refused to give up, is with us right now. Today we are not just one ship. We are Earth, we are humanity. And we do not lose. He took a deep breath. Forward. The Dokdo surged toward the swarm. The first railgun shot was fired at 0900 hours Galactic Standard Time. It traveled so fast that the Kresh bioship did not even register the attack before it was torn in half. The tungsten slug entered through the front of the creature and exited through the back, carrying most of the internal organs with it. The bioship was not just killed. It was destroyed so completely that there was nothing left to adapt. First kill confirmed, Jisu reported, her voice cold and professional. Reloading. Second target acquired. The Dokdo fired again. And again. And again, each railgun slug was a simple thing. Just a rod of dense metal, no bigger than a human arm. But traveling at 10% of light speed, each rod hit with enough force to level a city. The crash tried to adapt, thickening their shells, but physics did not care. A thicker shell just meant more debris when the slug punched through. "They are surrounding us," Minji announced, her hand steady on the navigation controls. She adjusted their course by 3 degrees, sliding between 2 massive bioships that tried to crush the Dokdo between them. Adjusting course. Maintaining speed toward Queen Ship. The crash adapted to energy weapons by becoming reflective. They adapted to gravity wells by disrupting the fields. But they had never faced an enemy that simply threw rocks very, very fast. There was nothing to reflect. Nothing to disrupt. Just metal meeting flesh at impossible speeds. Jisoo opened up with the missile batteries. Unlike the elegant alien weapons, human missiles were crude. They used chemical propellants that burned hot and dirty. They carried warheads filled with nuclear material, something the civilized galaxy had banned thousands of years ago. Each missile left a trail of fire and smoke as it streaked toward its target. The first nuclear detonation lit up space like a new sun. 100 crashed bioships vanished in the flash. The second detonation followed a moment later. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth. The swarm tried to scatter, but the missiles tracked them with simple heat-seeking sensors that could not be fooled by biological adaptation. Radiation levels spiking, Dohan reported from engineering. Hull holding. Shields absorbing excess. We can take more. On the observation decks of the retreating alien fleet, crews watched in stunned silence. The Valari, beings of pure light, dimmed their forms in something like shock. The Malthri, creatures that prided themselves on biological superiority, felt an emotion they had not experienced in millennia: fear. The Antari stopped singing their harmonic songs and simply stared. "What are they?" Someone asked on the open communication channel. Nobody answered. Nobody knew how to explain what they were seeing. A single ship, the ugly box they had mocked hours ago, was tearing through the swarm like a blade through water. The Crash Queen sensed something wrong. Her billions of children were dying, not adapting. The strange metal vessel was using weapons her race had never encountered. Weapons that could not be countered because there was nothing to counter. Just force. Raw, brutal, unstoppable force. She directed more ships toward the threat. Thousands of biofighters swarmed the Dokdo from every direction, determined to overwhelm it with numbers. "Point defense systems active," Jisoo said. Her fingers danced across the weapons console, activating the CIWS batteries. These were the last line of defense, rotating guns that fired thousands of bullets per minute. The bullets were not smart. They did not track targets or adjust for movement. They simply filled space with so much metal that nothing could pass through. The swarm hit the wall of bullets and stopped. Biofighters exploded as dozens of projectiles tore through their bodies. The creatures behind them flew into the debris and died as well. The ones behind those tried to pull away, but were caught by the outer edge of the bullet storm. In 30 seconds. Over 2,000 Crash fighters were reduced to drifting meat. "Captain," Subin said, her voice shaking slightly, "the entire fleet is listening. They are recording everything." "Good," Taiyo replied. "Let them see." A massive bioship, larger than the Dokdo itself, moved to intercept them. It was a carrier, designed to launch hundreds of smaller fighters. The creature opened its mouth, revealing rows of launch tubes filled with waiting warriors. Jisoo did not hesitate. Target acquired. Firing main gun. The main railgun was different from the secondary batteries. It was the Dokdo's primary weapon, a cannon that ran the entire length of the ship. The slug it fired was the size of a car and traveled even faster than the smaller rounds. The carrier did not have time to launch a single fighter. The slug hit it dead center and continued straight through, leaving a hole wide enough to fly a shuttle through. The carrier split in half, its internal systems exposed to the vacuum of space. Thousands of Kresh fighters die inside it before they could even enter the battle. Direct hit, Jisoo reported. Target eliminated. Reloading main gun. 60 seconds to next firing solution. Minji pushed the Dokdo faster, weaving through the chaos of the battle. Dead bioships tumbled past them. Living ones tried to grab the human vessel, but were torn apart by the point defense systems. The nuclear missiles continued to detonate in the distance, creating new stars that burned for moments before fading. Queen ship in visual range, Minji announced. Distance, 50,000 kilometers. Time to intercept, 4 minutes. Taiho studied the Queen ship through the main window. It was enormous, a living moon covered in tentacles and eyes. Somewhere inside that mass of flesh was the mind that controlled the entire swarm. Kill it, and the Kresh would fall into chaos. Status of the graviton hammer? He asked. Ready, Captain, Dawan answered. But we need to be within 5,000 kilometers for it to work. And once we fire it, we will have no power left. Weapons, engines, life support, everything will be down for at least 10 minutes. Can we survive 10 minutes without power in the middle of the swarm? Dawan paused. Honestly, Captain? I do not know. Taiho nodded. Then, we better make sure there is no swarm left when we fire. The Dokdo continued its charge, leaving a trail of destruction behind it. The beautiful alien fleet watched from safety as the ugly human vessel did what their elegant weapons could not. They watched as centuries of galactic military doctrine were proven wrong in a matter of minutes. Admiral Bright, the being of light who had mocked humans so casually, transmitted a single message on the open channel. It was only one word. How? Nobody answered him. The answer was flying through the swarm right now, wrapped in 40 centimeters of armor and carrying enough weapons to end worlds. The answer was humanity. And humanity did not explain. It demonstrated. 3 minutes to Queen ship, Minji said. We are going to make it, Captain. Taiho allowed himself a small smile. Of course we are. We are human. We always make it. The Queen ship filled the entire view screen. Up close, it was even more terrifying than from a distance. The creature was covered in millions of smaller Kresh, all clinging to their mother like parasites. Eyes the size of buildings tracked the approaching Dokdo. Tentacles the length of rivers reached out to grab the human vessel. 5,000 kilometers, Minji announced. We are in range. Captain Taiho stood from his command chair. His body ached from the stress of battle. His uniform was stained with sweat. But his voice was steady when he gave the order. Lieutenant Han, fire the graviton hammer. Jisoo pressed the activation button. The Dokdo shuddered as every system redirected power to a single weapon. The lights dimmed. The engine stopped. The shields collapsed. For a brief moment, the ship was completely defenseless. All of its energy focused on one impossible device. The graviton hammer was not elegant technology. It was brute force engineering at its worst. Human scientists had found a way to create a tiny artificial black hole, hold it stable for a fraction of a second, then release it at a target. The weapon was inefficient, dangerous, and had a 60% chance of destroying the ship that fired it. But when it worked, nothing could survive. A point of absolute darkness appeared between the Dokdo and the Queen ship. Space itself bent around it, light curving toward the hungry void. The Queen tried to pull away, but gravity did not care about adaptation. Gravity pulled everything. The Queen ship began to compress. Its massive body folded inward as the artificial singularity drew it closer. Eyes burst under the pressure. Tentacles snapped and were sucked into the void. Millions of Kresh clinging to their mother were ripped from her surface and crushed into nothing. The singularity collapsed after exactly 1.3 seconds, exactly as designed. When it disappeared, the Queen ship was gone. Not destroyed in the traditional sense. Simply compressed into a ball of matter no larger than a house. 800 years of Kresh evolution ended in the blink of an eye. The effect on the swarm was immediate. Without the Queen's mind to guide them, the Kresh lost all coordination. Bioships that had been attacking in perfect formation suddenly stopped. Fighters that had been pursuing targets drifted aimlessly. The living cloud that had threatened to consume an entire sector became nothing more than confused animals floating in the void. Power systems rebooting, Dohan reported, his voice tired but triumphant. Main reactor online in 3 minutes. Secondary systems coming back now. Casualties? Taiho asked. Eunji checked her medical readouts. 17 injured. No deaths. We got lucky, Captain. Luck had nothing to do with it. Taiho allowed himself a moment to breathe. We trained for this. We built this ship for this. We were ready. Subin suddenly gasped. Captain, the alien fleet. They are returning. Through the observation window, the survivors of the Council fleet could be seen approaching. 19 ships out of the original 37, all of them damaged, all of them moving slowly. They were not coming to fight. They were coming to see. Admiral Bright's voice came through the communication system. For the first time, there was no mockery in his tone. No superiority. Only something that sounded almost like respect. Human vessel Dokdo. This is Admiral Bright of the Valari fleet. Please respond. Taiho sat back in his command chair. This is Captain Park. Go ahead, Admiral. A long pause. Then, what we witnessed today. We do not have words for it. Our historians will study this battle for generations. Our military commanders will analyze every moment. But I must ask you one question, Captain. Why? Why do your people build such terrible weapons? Taiho thought about the question. He thought about Earth, about the wars and famines and plagues that had shaped humanity. He thought about his grandfather's stories, about his own memories of Bizan burning, about every lesson he had learned in 40 years of military service. Because we remember, he finally answered. We remember what it is like to almost die. Not as individuals, as a species. Comets nearly wiped us out. Ice ages nearly froze us. Plagues nearly killed every last one of us. And when those things did not succeed, we nearly destroyed ourselves with wars. Over and over, we came close to extinction. And each time, we survived because we were willing to do whatever it took. He leaned forward. We do not build these weapons because we want to fight, Admiral. We build them because we never want to lose again. We build them so that no matter what threatens us, no matter how powerful or how numerous, we have an answer. And that answer is always the same. Overwhelming force. Applied without mercy. Until the threat is gone. Admiral Bright was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet. You are a terrifying species, Captain Park. Yes, Taiho agreed. We know. The journey back to Corinth Station took 3 days. The Dokdo flew at the center of the fleet now, not the rear. Alien commanders who had laughed at humans now requested meetings with Captain Park. Requests for technical exchanges arrived every hour. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know how human weapons worked. Ambassador Yuna handled most of the diplomatic traffic. She was smiling more than Taiho had ever seen her smile. The council has voted, she told him on the final day of the journey. Humanity has been elevated to senior member status. Full voting rights. Full military alliance. They want our ships at every major engagement. Of course they do, Taiho said. They saw what happens when they are not. Jisoo was promoted to commander. Dohwan received an engineering commendation from 3 different species. Minji was offered positions on a dozen alien vessels, all of which she politely refused. Yoonji wrote a medical paper about treating radiation exposure that became required reading at every alien medical academy. Subin's recordings of the battle were watched by billions of beings across the galaxy. And Captain Taiho Park requested retirement. His final log entry was recorded on the day he left the Dokdo for the last time. He sat in his empty quarters, the walls bare, his bags packed, and spoke to the recording device. Captain's log, final entry. Today I transfer command of the HSS Dokdo to Commander Jisoo Han. She will make a fine captain. Better than me, probably. She has the fire that this job requires. He paused, looking out the window at the stars. When I joined the Navy 50 years ago, humans had just discovered faster than light travel. We were nothing. A small species on a small planet at the edge of the galaxy. Everyone looked down on us. Everyone assumed we would fail. A small smile crossed his weathered face. They do not look down on us anymore. The galaxy learned something during the Battle of Valari 7. They learned that elegance is not the same as effectiveness. They learned that old methods can still work when new ones fail. And most importantly, they learned that humans, when pushed to the edge, will push back with everything we have. He stood up and touched the wall of his cabin one last time. We are not the strongest species. We are not the smartest. We are not the most advanced. But we are survivors. We crawled out of caves and conquered our planet. We survived ice and fire and each other. And now we have taken our place among the stars, not as children, not as primitives, but as equals. As warriors. As humans. Captain Taiho Park picked up his bags and walked out of his quarters. End log. Behind him, through the window, the Dokdo floated in space. Ugly, boxy, covered in weapons. Ready for the next fight. And somewhere in the galaxy. Other species looked at that ship and finally understood what humanity truly was. They were not primitive. They were simply better at war than anyone had ever imagined, and they always would be.